Darlene Lancer is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is an expert author on relationships and codependency. She's counseled individuals and couples for 30 years and coaches internationally. Her books include Conquering Shame and Codependency, 8 Steps to Freeing the True You, as well as Codependency for Dummies, and a good one. That's a really good one. I want to get that one. And Codependency, I said that one already. 7 ebooks, including 10 Steps to Self-Esteem, How to Speak Your Mind, Become Assertive, and Set Limits, Dealing with a Narcissist, 8 Steps to Raise Self-Esteem and Set Boundaries with Difficult People. That's relevant for a lot of exes. We have a lot of exes that are involved who have narcissistic tendencies and other types of personality disorder tendencies. We call them high conflict personalities. Other of her ebooks include I'm Not Perfect, I'm Only Human, How to Beat Perfectionism and Freedom from Guilt and Blame, Finding Self-Forgiveness. They're available on Amazon and other online booksellers, and her website, which is www.whatiscodependency.com, where you can get a free copy of 14 tips for letting go. She's a sought-after speaker in media and at professional conferences. You can find her on SoundCloud, Clip, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter at Darlene Lancer, as well as Facebook. I'd love for you to start, Darlene, by defining codependency for us and giving us an idea of what it looks like, what codependent issues look like.
Sure. Well, codependency is when a person can't access their internal resources for their innate self, basically, and their thinking and behavior and feelings all revolve around another person, substance, or a process. So in my definition, that includes addicts, because whether they're addicted to a process like sex or gambling or substance, which could be drugs or food, something like that. And how it shows up is codependence, what they have in common is underneath is shame, and people may not be aware of that. And with shame comes fear and excessive guilt and low self-esteem. And it impacts all of the codependent behaviors, makes it hard to set boundaries. We become victims of abuse and manipulation. We can't say no to people because we're afraid of losing them. So it makes us more reactive and less empowered. Other things, it creates problems with intimacy. So, and control issues. Either controlling ourselves, controlling our children, controlling other people. That's in denial. Denial, shame, control, intimacy issues, dysfunctional boundaries, dysfunctional communication, unable to be assertive. Those are all like the basic core symptoms.
Wow, yeah, that's so much. It seems to cover so many issues. So how is it created? Like, how do we have this shame that's instilled in us so much that we create, like, it seems like we kind of create all these mechanisms of dealing with the shame that play out in these dysfunctional ways. So where does that shame come from?
It comes from childhood, and that's what I hope to impart to your listeners so they can be better parents and also, work on themselves. So just to let you know, there's a chapter in Codependency for Dummies and also in Conquering Shame and Codependency, which goes into more detail on the parenting and the sources of codependency and shame. So it happens in dysfunctional families where there's dysfunctional communication, dysfunctional boundaries. That means there may be abuse or you're getting double messages. Boundaries are either invasive, so it's, or there's too rigid, parents that are over controlling, authoritarian, or they're neglecting and they have no boundaries. They do their like some children or some adults who as children were over controlled will just be very passive. So they will do the opposite. So if they had a parent that was abusive and dictatorial, they'll want to just maybe have very loose boundaries, but children need boundaries. and they do need discipline. Or sometimes parents who, as children, were abused, they want to keep their children safe, so they're overprotective, and that teaches children to be fearful. Or then a lot of parents today are what they call helicopter parents. They're just over involved, and it's actually kind of shocking to me when I have clients that are parents and they tell me that this is expected, that the teachers expect the parents to do the homework and do the science projects and be so involved. And this wasn't true when I was raising children.
Mm-hmm.
But I see the effect of that, because I have clients who their parents did everything for them, and maybe they got A's, but they have no confidence at all. They think that it was their parents helped them, and so it was the parents that got them the A's. It was the parents that did all this, or they can't motivate themselves. So I think it's really detrimental. And then I hear stories of, it's like the parents, they're doing a science project or an English project or something, and they're competing with the other parents. And there's just a lot of appearance and shame is promoted that way. So I think it's kind of sad what's happening and what's expected now. Now I forgot your question.
Yeah, and I think you said something at the beginning that I think is so important to recognize, which is you said that it's not thinking that you're intrinsically worthy and good enough. And so a big thing that I see in all these scenarios of codependency is kind of an enmeshment where like you start to feel the other, like there's no separation between you and your child or you and your partner. Like,
yes, it's a big
feel their feelings and you want to fix it all and you want to, take it all on versus being in your body and your feelings in your headspace, right? And not like kind of enmeshing yourself with them. Yeah.
Oh, that's a big problem. Yeah. So some parents get overly involved, especially a single parent,
right?
Where they don't have an important relationship, significant other in their life. So they over-focus on their child and get all involved with their friendships, the child's friendships, and try to make friends for them and organize their social life and their homework and, which friend is teasing them or whatever. And they get so preoccupied with that rather than creating their own life.
They lose themselves, right?
They lose themselves, and there's no boundaries. Another problem with boundaries, there's emotional boundaries, which are a little hard to explain because it's when we take overreact and we take responsibility for other people's feelings. Mm-hmm. So physical boundaries are more understandable because you can see them. It also is like having your own space, your property, how you're touched, you're not touched. But that's another thing with touching your child. So sometimes maybe take it for granted with your child, but my granddaughter, her father sat on her bed and she says, "I didn't give you permission to sit on my bed." So she learned that somewhere. I think that's cute.
Yeah.
But emotional boundaries, here's an example. So a child is acting out in public or maybe at a play. And here's the other thing. Parents go to play dates with their children, which is kind of strange to me. But they do. And so then sometimes they get embarrassed because their child isn't behaving well. Or maybe it's just at the supermarket. So they feel ashamed and they take it personally. Now it's their child's behavior, and now they think it's a reflection that they're not a good parent. And then it affects their self-esteem and they start to feel shame. And so what happens, they start getting angry and escalating, discipline or yelling at the child or something. And it's coming from their own shame that they're not aware of. And what happens is they transfer shame. This is how shame gets passed on. So I always tell parents the best way to raise your children's self-esteem is to work on your own. So if you're not reacting and your self-esteem is not dependent on your child's grades, your child's behavior, how many friends they have, whether the teacher likes them, whether they do well at a school performance, they can fail and you're fine with it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's huge. And it's actually really hard. I tell clients, I think we're kind of in a codependent culture. Like we're kind of culturally encouraged to fall into these codependent patterns. The songs are telling us that other people will complete us, and the movies are telling us that, it's okay to, be enmeshed with our partners and with our kids. I think there's pressure culturally as parents to be that involved, So do you agree with that, or?
I hear that all the time. As I said, the parents are competing that they do a good project. And
then it's not about the kids at all. It's about the parents.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. So do you agree with that there's kind of a cultural epidemic of codependency going on?
Well, I see this in the parenting. And now they have to compete with a birthday party. Parents that don't have the money have to now compete and spend like $500 or more to have a party somewhere else.
That I point out codependent patterns to clients, and then they're like, oh no, I'm totally that. And they start feeling shame about their codependency. So have you found that to be true? And if so, like, how do you?
Absolutely. They think, oh no, I have a label now. But I'm just, I don't know, 80% of people are codependent to some extent.
Yeah.
So you're in the majority. I had a blog I wrote that don't worry, you're in the majority. But I always say, I don't really like labels, but the good thing is, it's like, I make an analogy. If you're going to a department store and you know what you want, then you know what department to find it in, right? So if you have a diagnosis, then you know what the solution is. So if you're without a diagnosis, you can get the wrong drug or the wrong treatment. So I spent a lot of years in therapy myself with therapy that wasn't very helpful. And I think what is the most helpful is learning new skills, learning to raise your self-esteem, learning to be assertive. And all this is interactive. So the more assertive you are, the more it raises your self-esteem. The more you build your self-esteem, the more assertive you'll be. And that's why the first 2 ebooks I wrote were on those subjects. And then deeper is learning how to love yourself. And I put together a audio MP3. It's a self-love meditation. And because most codependents didn't have a nurturing parent. Sometimes they did, but then the parent was enmeshed and didn't have boundaries. But I would say the majority of codependents came from a family where they didn't have a nurturing parent. And by the way, I should add that it's not enough that one parent is mirroring their child's feelings and loving. You need it from both. So even if you're a good parent and your husband or your wife is cold or disengaged or abusive, it has an impact, a detrimental, traumatic impact on the child, and you can't make up for it because they need to feel that both parents want a relationship with them for their unique self. Anyway, so I put together this self-love MP3 because most people don't know really how to love themselves or how to even be gentle. I say clients have, they may not know, but they have a dog. I said, well, would you treat your dog the way you treat yourself? No way, They'd be so gentle with their dog and pamper it and pet it and talk to it sweetly, feel its vulnerability. Well, we have that inside, and our children are that way too. I think we forget, because if we're not connected to our own inner child and tender with ourselves, we'll forget what it's like to be 5 years old. We don't remember, how vulnerable we were. So if any of your listeners want to email me, I'll send that to them along with 18 tips for self-love. Because our relationship with ourselves is really a template for all our relationships.
Yeah, it starts with loving ourselves because, everything that we're seeing in other people that's driving us crazy is parts of ourselves that we haven't addressed or accepted.
Good point.
Right. So if we do that inner work, the more we accept ourselves, the more it's like when people come to me and they're like adult clients and they're like, oh, my mom drives me crazy every time she calls. Right. And the work that I have them do is on accepting the parts of themselves that are the way she is. And that way, if they're fully in self-acceptance, their mom can do whatever she wants. She can talk however much she wants. She can tell them what to do however much she wants. And they're going to be okay because they're not faced with a part of themselves that they're not accepting.
Really, they're still okay. I mean, they can accept it and not react to it, but they're still okay with it.
Right.
Okay.
What do you mean? Say more.
Well, I was thinking you can not react to something, but you still accept it, but doesn't necessarily mean you like it. So you could still set a boundary.
Right. But it's like, what I'm talking about is when a mom's just being a mom. Like, it's not like she's necessarily, maybe someone without really good boundaries, right? I mean, you can set boundaries with them. And if they're not, they're just talking and they're being like, they're being triggered just by how much.
I thought you meant like being criticizing you or telling you what to do.
Right. Well, okay. So it's true. So you're saying like, set a boundary if that's happening. Like if your mom as an adult is telling you what to do, then set a boundary is what you're saying.
Well, sometimes every mother sometimes gives advice, but if it starts to get controlling,
right,
you're doing the wrong thing, and that kind of thing. So,
sure.
I try to say, would you like a suggestion to people?
Right.
Usually say yes.
Right.
Or other times it just learn to listen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to say, if I want your advice, I'll ask for it. Thank you for sharing.
That's actually a good thing to say to your children when they're doing something and you want to right away get in there and correct it. You might ask them if they'd like help. See if there's another way. And sometimes they'll say no.
Yeah.
The wrong way.
So do you have any advice for stepmoms who are watching, who are listening to you and they're like, their stepkid might be being raised by a biological mom in the other house who is, raising them with a lot of shame and judgment. Do you have any advice and you're saying like both parents need to be on board, otherwise it doesn't matter. Do you have any advice for a stepmom who sees that, but what can she do? Because there's so much other parenting going on that she's not.
She can provide another model. And
right, yeah.
Sometimes I've had situations working with stepmoms who just something that the biological parent is doing with their child, maybe they think is enabling, that they're too lenient with their child or something like that, and it drives them up the wall, and they just get really angry about it. And in working with them, what we find and uncover is that they're reacting to maybe their parent was the opposite, or for instance, they were neglected and they feel like the biological parent is too indulgent. So once they grieve and come to terms with their own childhood, they can accept that better. Or maybe it's reminding them of they're actually competing with this child because it reminds them of competition they had with a sibling. So anyway, it goes back to like what you were saying. It may not be their mother, but something in their childhood is triggering them. So just basically, even with your partner, when you get to feeling like rage, it's coming from the past. So anger is when you don't get your needs met. I go into this more in the book on shame. But when you really get livid and really furious at something, it's something, unless you're being, you know, clobbered, and it's happening in the present, but when your reaction is disproportional to the event, is coming from your past and maybe your childhood or a prior marriage or something like that.
Yeah.
You could do some writing about it. If you're in therapy, you can talk to your therapist about it.
Right. So, and that's why, like, we come around to this over and over again. It is so important to do your own work, because most likely the ways that you're being the most tripped up and getting the most bent out of shape are things that you need to look inside and do some healing work around, right? It's easy to say, it's everybody else, right?
I remember, it's a funny story, but I remember getting angry at my son who, I think he had a half-eaten apple he threw away. And I don't know, I scolded him or got angry or something. I don't remember, it was a long time ago. But then later I thought, I remember I got punished for that. And I think it was that he lied about it or something. So then I remembered I was maybe overreacting because this practically the same thing happened to me. Another thing, I think parents can humiliate their children unwittingly. So I see this sometimes. For instance, I was at an ice cream shop, and a mother had bought an ice cream cone for her daughter, and the daughter's eating it, and then she takes it. She just grabs it from her to eat it, and then she teases her, and she's like holding it away from her to make her reach for it. To me, that's humiliating.
Right.
It's really discounting. So that mother was playing out something that probably happened to her when she was a child.
Yeah, not really respecting her daughter as like an individual who has, right, who's eating her own ice cream. You wouldn't do that to another adult, right? You wouldn't grab their ice cream out and then say, here you go. It's so demeaning. Yeah.
And making them like dance for your friends or something like that, or sing a song that they don't want to.
Yeah. It's so important to be respectful. This is also really hard work, I want to acknowledge. That when I first started tuning into codependency and reading about what it was and seeing the parts of myself that were playing out codependent issues, it was like really difficult to come to terms with. And it's a lot of work to shift those patterns and to get free of those very ingrained patterns that we have since childhood, right? That we've been building up all these years. Yeah, it can be a challenge. Would you say that's true?
Oh, it is. I mean, it's like when your kids are angry, it's typical that you may want to, maybe they're jealous of a sibling or something, and they're having kind of a tantrum. And how you talk to them is important, that you don't punish them for getting angry. In other words, it's okay to be angry, and I understand why you're angry, but, you know, and comfort them and saying, but, you know, your sibling, they have to play too, or whatever it is, and it's not okay to hit, or it's not okay to, but it's okay to be angry. And it's okay for them to be angry at us. It's really important that they know that they can get angry at their parents, and you won't take away your love.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah. To be able to hold their anger, like, I see you're really angry at me, and that must be hard for you.
Yeah.
It can be so hard. It's something my son, he went through a little phase where he was doing a lot of, I hate you, mommy. Like, whenever I didn't do what he wanted, if he was frustrated at something that he was doing, maybe that didn't even involve me, he started to take it out on me, take out his anger on me. I hate you, mommy. I hate you, mommy. And he did this for a week, maybe a couple weeks. And at first I was very patient. I know you're angry. I won't let you hurt me. And I held him off me, but it got to me after a little while. It really got me, you know, it started to hurt my feelings. It started to upset me, like I was doing something wrong. And I started to have more of a reaction as time went on, because he was continuing it day after day after day. So what's that?
What happened?
Well, one day I cried after he had been particularly brutal, saying, I want to hurt you. When we go home after this car ride, because you won't give me what I want, I'm going to hurt you.
Wow.
And so I said, that really hurts my feelings. And I started crying in the car, and he was like, are you sad about it? And I was like, yes, I'm very sad. That really hurts my feelings. I love you a lot, and it hurts my feelings that you would want to hurt me. I would never want to hurt you. And he got really, and I don't know if that was the right thing or not. That was just what was.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say.
That was just, yeah.
They have to teach them the impact of their behavior.
Right, right.
By the way, narcissists don't know the impact of their behavior.
Right, right.
So, yeah, I think it's fine to say, yeah, I see that you're angry and it hurts me.
Yeah. When you want to hurt me, it hurt. Right. When you want to hurt me, it hurts my feelings. Yeah. So, and then he got really thoughtful about that, and he's like, well, I actually love you. I think he said something like, well, I do love you, and then that was pretty much the end of that happening. He hasn't done it since. So he did it maybe one more time, and I was really calm, and, and that was it. So yeah, it was interesting. The whole time I was really like, how do I work with this? And what have I done wrong? And like, I can't let him hurt me. And, just very kind of like defending myself. But the whole time, I don't know if I was, and then once I had that, like, let him see me vulnerably cry, then he really processed that, I think.
When we show our vulnerability, it gives when we're authentic, it gives other people the permission and safety to be authentic and vulnerable too.
Right. I think it's okay as parents, what you're saying is to show, it's so funny because you feel like you have to guard against showing them your real feelings. Like you're really hurt when they do that stuff, but why do you think that you can't show them that you're hurt? Like you have to be like, no, I'm an authority and I'm okay all the time, right? And that's not necessarily true. It's actually helpful to show your emotionals.
Well, yeah, I mean, but if you're crying all the time about an ex or something, I don't think you want to be in a situation where they then are parenting you and worried, start to worry, but definitely show your emotional reactions.
Right. And talk about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're learning.
Yeah.
They learn that they matter.
Mm.
And they're testing you to see, whether you would accept his anger or, because when if you have an impact, like with a narcissistic parent, you don't have an impact. Right. No matter what you do, they're going to be the same, right?
Right.
You can cry, you can complain, you can fight with them. They're just going to they're not going to take in because they just see the reflection of themselves.
Right.
So it's important to give that.
That is so interesting, and it makes so much sense. And then once he realized that he mattered and he did have an impact, he felt like better about it, and he didn't have to do the behavior anymore, right? Like he didn't have to try to get a reaction out of me. Yeah. So, thank you so much, Darlene, for being here. So they can find you, just give your website again so that they can find you.
What is codependency.com? You can also get there from my name, Darlene Lancer, and on there's links to my YouTube channel where I have YouTubes. I have audio recordings, SoundCloud and clips, and I have 2 Facebook pages and a timeline, and I'm on Google+. You can follow my monthly blog. You could get the 14 tips, and I'll send you, if you email me at info@darlenelancer.com. It's also on my website. I'll send you the 18 tips to self-love in the MP3. It's all there at whatiscodependency.com.
Great. Darlene has some great stuff on social media. I've started to follow her recently, and I'm definitely going to be checking you out more because I can see that you get this stuff inside and out, and it's definitely a path for me. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Sounds like you're doing good work too. So thank you.